Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast. We have a jam-packed show for you today, and we actually have a smaller crew here today. So I'm HatMax42, and I'm joined by Carlo, C. Favreto Jr. Carlo, how you doing, man?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing well. So yeah, we're actually recording this in the early-ish morning, compared to the usual late in the evening. So our energy level might be a little different, folks. Hopefully that's for the best. We'll see. But yeah. So before we dive into the meat of the episode, I want to give a huge thank you to MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering products and gear. And for the holidays, there are a number of sales going on right now, including 15% off all Quiver products. So if you've seen those swanky, basically pieces of like custom luggage that are designed for trading card games, if you've seen those at your local game store and think, man, I need to get me one of those, or man, I love my Quiver and I really wish so-and-so who comes to my Commander nights, they really ought to have one too. Well, now's the time, and MagicJank.com is a place where you can pick those up, and it's a phenomenal it's a great deal. It's probably honestly just straight up the best deal you're gonna find.
Yeah, you can get them. You can get them in the larger amount that fits up to 5 decks in it, or you can get the bullet that fits like 3.
Yeah, about 3 Commander decks. Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty great. I'm a big fan, not going to lie. So yeah, Quiver, definitely check them out, and MagicJank.com. Thank you for making it possible. And cool. So this past week was an incredibly heavy news week in general. So Wizards decided this past Tuesday to drop a couple of big hits on us. We knew there was a banned and restricted announcement scheduled, and that happened. Holy cow. We also got a look at a new format that is going to be coming to Arena in Timeless. We're going to be diving into that as well. And then, since then, they also previewed the Murders at Karlov Manor expansion that's going to be coming out next year, alongside a couple of the Clue cards. That's kind of this custom product or a special product that's going to be coming alongside Murders. So, yeah, we have some new cards to look at. We have a new format to talk about, and we're going to start off by discussing the bans that occurred. So, unsurprisingly, we have no bans in Standard. Given that it's like an emergency window, I think that makes sense. So, okay. However, in Pioneer and Explorer, there were a couple of hits. Karn the Great Creator and Geological Appraiser were both banned. Geological Appraiser, notably, only having just arrived in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And already, they were like, nope, this is problematic. Can't do this anymore. And then also in Pioneer, they unbanned Smuggler's Copter. So the Looter Scooter is back on the menu for reasons. So Carlo, how do you feel about these bans? What are your thoughts?
Listen, there have been many a MagicJank podcast episode where we've talked about potential bans. And I feel like one that has been consistent that we've talked about is Karn the Great Creator getting the axe from Pioneer. Karn is such a good card and was exemplified in the mono green deck. Mm-hmm. And I think I have made the comment that the mono green deck would probably be fine without Karn, right? There always was the question, should you ban Nykthos from Pioneer? Is that what was making the mono green deck too good? But the ability to fetch whatever card you want out of your sideboard with Karn's minus, while turning off some of the cards of your opponents, it's kind of restrictive. It's kind of messed up. And it allows you to keep looping, especially with Kiora in the deck. So, I'm glad that they finally hit this card because it was not fun to play at tournaments, like play against. You would just sit there while the opponent keeps do. We don't need that, no. Right? Karn the Great Creator is a fantastic card. I love it. It's great in other formats where it exists, but a little too messed up for Pioneer. So I'm glad to see Karn go finally.
Right,
and it's been overdue.
100%. Well, and the abilities on this card, I mean, what made it really powerful in that green list is giving you access to an entire toolbox in your sideboard, especially with how many incredibly expensive artifacts are out there that are just insanely powerful. I think that's really one of the things that made it so dynamic and so powerful in that deck specifically. Because when you have 50 mana on turn 5, go grab whatever you want. Go crazy. Like, that was a little silly. Like, it really was. And so, yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad they hit it. But the passive on this, the fact that it just incidentally shuts off your opponent's artifacts as well, there are certain strategies where that just absolutely bodies the opponent. And that's incidental. Like, that's not even why you're running the card.
Yeah, and you know, the mono green deck can still generate 50 mana, and they can still cast Storm the Festivals, and they can cast Cavalier of Thorns, and they can put their whole deck onto the battlefield if they want. Just less consistently and less explosive, but they can still do it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if this. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I played a variant of the Mono Green Devotion list. It was submitted. It was a viewer submission for on my stream. I wish I remember who had submitted it, but it was Mono Green Gruul, and it was running Gigantosaurus and Terror of the Peaks. Because when you have 1 million mana, hitting Storm the Festival and grabbing 2 Terror of the Peaks or Terror of the Peaks and Gigantosaurus, that still gets the job done.
Yeah.
But it's far more narrow, and it's more of a meme than something like Karn being consistently, insane at the top end. But to your point, like with Nixos, with the Storm of the Festivals, with Cavalier, the deck is still good. There's still a ton of power there. They just need to find a different top end. And it'll be interesting to see what that ends up being.
Yeah. Now, for Geological Appraiser, that's brand new out of Lost Caverns of Ixalan, right? That's our 4 mana Discover 3/2. And they banned this card because they forgot or didn't think about the interaction with older cards in the format. Being able to pump this thing out on turn 3 and actually win the game. I'm surprised they missed it, but it also means actively, I don't think they're really testing for the older formats, or else you would see that this is a thing. It's interesting to me because they also left the door open for the other Discover deck that kills you on turn 4. You see, banning this card only got rid of the Eldritch Evolution version. You can still play the Quintorius version with Magma Opus and the other card from Strixhaven that you could pay 2 mana, get treasures.
There were a couple. Expressive Outburst.
And you can play the version that plays 4 Spark Doubles and Clever Impersonators. That deck's still in the format, but you have an extra turn to interact with it. So it'll be interesting to me because looking at some regional championship lists, they included both versions. But they only hit a card that affected one of the versions, the one that was quicker. So it will be interesting to see if the Discover deck in Explorer or Pioneer continues to be a menace. But we'll find out because DreamHack Atlanta is coming up next weekend, and that is a regional championship that is Pioneer. So we will see if maybe some faster decks are able to win at a higher percentage than this Discover deck can, in combination with the already existing metagame.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to see. Honestly, looking at this card, I don't know. Honestly, I'm surprised they keep coming back to the Cascade Well. Like, I get that it's fun, but is it worth it? Because somebody will always come up with a variant. I mean, this almost gives me Tybalt's Trickery vibes. It's not obviously Tybalt's Trickery is a whole other level. It's significantly faster and whatnot. But it's just hit this, and your deck is designed to spin in a certain way, and it's going to be insane. And I feel like almost every time that they do this kind of effect, someone finds how to spin and break the game. So why do they keep doing this? I don't know. It seems I don't get it.
I think we discussed before a couple episodes ago. What's a better mechanic, Cascade or Discover? And I believe the answer now is Discover, because for the simple fact that if I don't want to cast the card I hit, I could just put it in my hand and play it again later.
That's huge.
You're still netting a card. It's not like Cascade, like I would play my Enlisted Worm and randomly hit negate off the Cascade and can do nothing with it. Oh no, I can play Geological Appraiser in Standard, and I can discover into maybe a burn spell I don't want to use right away, and then I can put it in my hand and use it later. Or your counter spells are no longer dead off of discover.
Right.
So it's quite interesting to see. I would argue at this point that discover is better than Cascade is. Please tell me in the comments section, by the way, why I'm wrong. And
Engagement, make it happen. Yep.
yeah. But I'm excited. I still see a bunch of Discover everywhere in multiple formats. So it's good to see that there is a mechanic from the new set that is making an impact. Not one that lets you win on turn 3, though.
100%.
That we can't do.
And I agree, by the way. The biggest difference, I mean, the only major difference is when it triggers. That's really it. Everything else is, is up in the air. And the thing about about Discover, though, is there's some, that trigger multiple times. We also have one that actually does trigger on cast, which is the Tequitlan, the Searing Rift. If you get this land down, which, by the way, is the backside of Brass's Tunnel Grinder, when you cast a permanent spell using mana from this land, it discovers X, where X is the mana value. And so it triggers on cast just the same way that Cascade does, except where, Cascade would be effectively 1 minus the mana value. This is the entire mana value. So if I cast a particularly nasty 6-drop, if I have that nasty 6-drop, or one thing I've done with this is cast out a Bonehorde Dracosar, discover into another Bonehorde Dracosar.
Right.
That's grotesque if you can do things like that. And this is Discover. So, it's one of those things where it's kind of splitting hairs depending on the format you're in and how you're triggering it. Maybe you could argue that some Cascade cards do it better than some Discover cards. Okay, sure. But yeah, I completely agree that, 1-to-1, Discover, there may be plenty of decks where, Cascade is a better fit.
Yep.
But Discover is the stronger mechanic, just one for one. The number of times that I've had a Chimila line spun into a Sunfall, but I was ahead on board, and be like, not right now, but I'm just going to save this for later. Having that in your back pocket now feels really good. And your opponent sees it. It's face up. Yeah, it's, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just from watching your stream, Chimil. I mean, that card is actually insane.
So good.
And it really speaks to another reason why I think Karn the Great Creator was a great ban. Because, man, being able to minus and search up for Chimil out of my sideboard and play it on the battlefield to indefinitely ensure my opponent can't counter my cards. And at the end step, getting an additional spell off Discover in the mono green deck. I mean, little ridiculous.
Silly.
I actually think that's quite an underplayed card in Standard right now.
Agreed.
6 mana, can't counter your spells, free spell at the end step. Why aren't we doing this?
Why aren't more people doing this?
I know it's legendary, but it's great.
But it's great. Exactly. If you're running any kind of mid-range plan with really good 3, 4, and 5 drops, this as a 2 of is kind of a no-brainer in my opinion. Because you're right, it guards all your spells as far as countering is concerned. And you just get mad value if it survives until the end step. And if it survives if it survives for 2 or 3 turns, you're going to provide more value than your opponent knows what to do with. And this is when Discover first got spoiled, or when we were first discussing it, I remember specifically saying, actually it was fun, we had a good podcast with Damien about that, if I recall correctly, where he was really saying if you're going to cascade, you really want to have a specific target that you're cascading into. And it's yes, if you're doing the cascade thing, sure. Yep. But with Discover, you can just build just a deck full of good cards. And just leverage these Discover cards to just get multiple of them and just 2 for 1 repeatedly. And Chimil does that so well. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
No, I mean, and not that the Esper decks aren't already good in Standard.
Right. I think they're fine.
They kind of make up 30% of the meta game. But, Standard doesn't need any bans.
Agreed.
But imagine the Esper decks just jamming a couple copies of Chimil in their sideboard and playing them against each other. So no matter what, you either get an end step Wandering Emperor for free, which you can use the ability, or you get some type of really good card that you can keep in your hand and use later. This card's insane.
It's nuts. It is a consistent overperformer for me. Yep. Yeah, big fan. Cool. But so there's one other ban, or unban in this case, in Pioneer. Now it's not on Arena, so we don't see it in Explorer, despite being in Kaladesh. But it is what it is. And that is Smuggler's Copter. So the looter scooter
Yep.
How are we feeling about the Looter Scooter being live in Pioneer?
It's back.
Yes.
I don't know why they unbanned this card. To be honest.
I mean,
Smugglers Copter was banned many years ago because there was a mono black aggro deck that was incredibly consistent because of this card. If you were any type of an aggro deck, you automatically wanted to jam this card in there, right? Because who doesn't want a 3/3 flyer just coming at your opponent and fixing your draws? Like, any deck could play it. And any deck that played it was very consistent. This was also the same time, I believe Smugglers Copter was banned with Once Upon a Time and Field of the Dead.
oh wow.
So, taking into account that time period of overpowered Throne of Eldrain cards, right? Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know why this needed an unban. Unless this is them saying, we want more aggressive decks to exist in this format. They don't currently exist. So here, let's spread a little diversity in terms of types of decks that you can play. There is a significantly larger card pool, right? You've got cards like Abrade, which are common now in Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Right.
So, you can just deal with this card with a 2-mana spell. The question is, how much resources do you have to put behind dealing with a Smuggler's Copter to where you no longer have resources for other cards in your opponent's deck? It's probably going to be fine in the end. RC Atlanta is going to be the true testament behind Smuggler's Copter. What's really going to hold it back is not being able to play this card on Arena. I would hope that with Khans of Tarkir releasing, maybe we get a surprise and they just put Smuggler's Copter onto Arena. It should have been there already, considering Kaladesh cards are there.
Right.
And they really shouldn't. They shouldn't make it an option where somebody has to buy the card from the store. Or maybe what they will probably do is put it in an anthology whenever it's the next anthology that is going to come out. But I think for the sake of keeping Arena Explorer as close to Tournament Player Pioneer as possible, they should just give it the ability to be released with cons. Not draftable out of the set. That's no. But they should just put it on Arena at the same time.
That'd be nice. Yeah, I would really appreciate that. I don't know. Celebrate the unbanning by giving it to Arena players. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I don't anticipate they'd ever do that, but man, it'd be sweet. Because this card is absolutely going to see play in Pioneer. There's no question. If you out there have never played against Smugglers Copter, actually, and I'm right there with you, by the way. I have not. I was not playing Standard when it was around. But if you remember Reckoner Bankbuster, that was like a massively nerfed version of Smuggler's Copter, and that still had to get banned as well. So
Crazy,
right?
And for those of you who've been playing Standard, there's a similar card right now in Standard in the Schooner.
The Schooner,
in
yes.
Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and for 2 mana, that card's a 3/4. So it's hard to deal with off the bat. And it says when it attacks a creature that crewed it, and it also has crew 1. So your 1/1s can crew a 3/4 boat. And it makes that creature explore, which either draws you a card if it's a land, or puts a counter on the creature. It makes the creature that crewed it stronger. And you can either leave that card on the top, or bin it to your yard if you don't want it. I think this card is one of the most powerful cards that exists in Standard right now. You see how it's warped even the Esper decks to play it, right? And you can play cheaper, aggressive strategies now in Standard. Whether you want to play some Pirates, or if you want to play the blue-white aggro deck that did really well on the Magic Online Challenge, just within the last 2 weeks. This card has a home in lots of decks. Again, we have lots of cards that can address these. So again, Abrade being common is pretty important. We have lots of cards in Standard because Standard is extended for another year. that deal with artifacts and enchantments from Lorna the Third Path to Terra Sunder. Many more answers in this standard than when Smugglers Copter existed.
Sure.
But this reminded me of that card. And I'm like, whoa, I think this is like pushing the limits when this came out with the previews. And I'm like, we don't need Smugglers Copter 2.0. And Wizards was like, hold my beer. I'm going to unban it from Pioneer and good luck.
Yeah, no, you don't get Smugglers Copter 2.0. Let's just give you the OG. Let's go.
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the comparison to Subterranean Schooner is appropriate. One of the huge differences, though, there are a couple. Subterranean Schooner doesn't have evasion of any kind. So, it's at 3/4. It's got that 4 toughness. So it dying in the early game in combat isn't likely unless there's a cheap Death Toucher on the opposite side. But even then, that gives a lot of colors. Green and black both have cheap Death Touchers. Red has a ton of artifact removal. White has disenchant style effects. Everybody can deal with this in one way or another. The other thing that's massive here is this is blue. So your deck has to have blue mana in it. Granted, a lot of those, we've seen the low to the ground, merfolk decks running around right now. There's one Siren Pirate that's a 1-drop that creates the map token. That into this is an awesome curve. And I don't know about, I don't know about you or about our viewers out there, but playing Standard on the ladder, I've gone up against that plenty. And it's very strong. It is tough to deal with. That said, I main deck 2 Brotherhood's End in pretty much every deck I play right now. And if that shows up, I'm having a good day. If it doesn't, I'm not.
I'm glad to see the return of Brotherhood End to sideboards.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It's been missing for the last 2 standard sets because there weren't really aggressive strategies out there. And it is kind of harder in standard now to play an aggressive strategy with the amount of white wrath effects. From Depopulate to Sunfall to Farewell. So, maybe it's not the best time for aggro decks, but this card makes it more possible. Because, hey, this survives Sunfall.
It survives
Depopulate.
Sunfall. Yeah. And then if you can follow it up, if your opponent taps out, so if you've been busting your opponent up throughout the course of the game, and their life total is relatively low, they Sunfall you. If you have a Schooner down, you just follow it up by playing any creature, and Schooner's just still doing the thing. Yeah. Or even if you don't have another creature in hand, but you have, your Restless Anchorage or whatever, just animate, crew, slap, you're still doing the thing. And then your creature land might get bigger for the following turn, or, it can get out of hand very, very fast. And all of a sudden, Sunfall is not the silver bullet against that particular aggro deck that it is in many other situations. And that, gives it some more play, which is interesting. But yeah, Smuggler's Copter coming back to Pioneer. Okay, I'm just going to ask the question. Do you think they're going to need to re-ban it down the line?
Well, the plus side is they have scheduled ban announcements that are meant to be for other formats other than Standard, right? The Standard schedule announcement is supposed to only be once a year. So they have the ability to do what they choose based on results. However, I don't think you would see a reban of this card if it's determined to be too strong, at least for another year, because they're going to want to gather data from Magic Online, from the regional championships. It's going to be harder to do that into the next season, because the next regional championship qualifier season is Standard. So that means less people playing Pioneer to determine that. I don't know.
Yeah,
we knew how powerful it was before. Don't know so much with a larger card pool that exists now. Totally understandable why it was banned early in Pioneer because of the smaller card pool of the new existing format at the time.
Right.
But now we have plenty of Magic cards to deal with this. So
that is very true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Also, in general, I am just very fond of the idea of unbanning previous older cards that were deemed too powerful in their time to see, okay, well, power has increased kind of across the board, so maybe it fits now. I see that with a lot of cards, especially in some of these older formats, like Pioneer, or definitely Modern. There are certain cards in Modern where I'm like, is that really that bad? I don't know. But
yeah,
I understand at the time it was. Not questioning it.
They unbanned Preordain in Modern, so it can't be that strong anymore, right?
I mean, clearly. Yeah. Well, and I also love they unbanned Mind's Desire in Legacy, and has anyone even played it since then?
I don't know, but I bought 4 Mind's Desire, the foil version, for 50 cents a piece when they announced it. I
Heck
was like,
yeah.
I don't even play Legacy, but I want these cool foil Mind's Desires.
You should, because they're pretty sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. So yeah, those bands will definitely be interesting. In Modern, actually, we also had some other bands. Now, in Modern, we had Fury and Up the Beanstalk both get the axe. So obviously, I mean, these are cards that are pretty darn powerful. So Up the Beanstalk, relatively new, and just a phenomenal card draw outlet for like next to nothing in that format. And then Fury is a card that has gotten a lot of press as of late for negating pretty much every small creature that you could choose to play in that format ever. So yeah, here we are.
Na 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 na. Hey hey hey. Goodbye.
All right.
Yeah, no. This card was very annoying to play against. It set up such unfair advantage in Modern. I will tell you, for the few Modern events in paper that I went to play, the scam deck or evoke deck, whatever you want to call it,
It's a scam.
was just so prevalent. Yeah, you were getting scammed.
It's a scam. It's not. Yeah, you shouldn't be able to
Showed
do
up
that.
to an
Yeah.
RCQ. It had 30 players at this one RCQ at LGS here in South Jersey, and 13 players were on this scam deck.
Of course. They were.
So I'd rather stay home than go to the tournament and get scammed, right?
That's what bands are for. Yeah.
Right. There's not much that you could do once the deck got out Fury on turn 2 or whatever. You lost. It was very hard to deal with a 3/3 or 4/4 in some cases, depending on the scam spell, with Double Strike after it wrecks an early board presence. Yes, there are cards like Solitude that exist, and we could go on and on about how free spells shouldn't belong in this format, because I'm a big proponent of that. I'm surprised they didn't also send Grief. And I guess they didn't want to take out the whole deck. Grief is by far more egregious than Fury is. And the people don't like getting Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is a fair card. Card costs 1 black. You take one of your opponent's card, you lose 2 life. Grief being scammed. Imagine getting like Thoughtseize on turn 1, turn 2, evoke Grief, and then scam it back. You are now down 3 cards in your hand. And on turn 2, after you've played 1 or 2 cards on the battlefield, your game is over.
Yeah, that's it.
You can't come back from that. I'm surprised this didn't auto get the axe. And I think what you're going to see in Modern now is a movement towards black-white scam.
Yep.
So no more Fury, but you will get to be griefed and solituded until your heart's desire.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
And this same deck now also has access to cards like Ephemerate, which blink out these evoke creatures. And spoiler alert, the creature doesn't have to die. It just blinks it anyway. Your opponent might gain some life from Solitude, but also having access to a free Swords to Plowshares in the same deck that's also getting rid of your hand might be less aggressive in terms of being able to attack you, but also very effective on the board. And I think what I'm seeing in some early builds is people are playing Stoneforge Mystic in these same decks. So they have a Stoneforge Mystic package to go get some swords, or Cauldron Complete, which is very powerful, out of these same decks, and you can blink the Stoneforge Mystic to go get more equipments and stuff out of your deck, which, hey, I'm totally a fan of. I'm a Stoneforge Mystic stan. But it's in the same deck as Grief and Solitude. So, is Modern fixed? No. But like you said, there is a brand new card that is also banned in Modern now, right?
Yep.
From Wilds of Eldrain. Imagine an Eldrain card getting banned in a format. But hello.
Yeah. It's crazy.
This card is egregious. We've talked about this on the podcast plenty of times in Standard, right? The way that the Domain deck is able to play Up the Beanstalk into Leyline Binding, right? Exile a card, draw an extra card for 1 mana. it is what it is in standard.
Yeah.
But in modern, this card gets to be better because of the free spells. So imagine playing Up the Beanstalk, and then for free, pitching a card from your hand, solituding your creature, draw a card, refill the card you just lost. Solitude is in fact free, right? Because of Up the Beanstalk.
Yeah.
Or being able to cast, like, this was very highly played in like the Omnath deck, right? Like would pay 2 mana for Up the Beanstalk. Generate all the value off the Omnath decks, which included playing Fury, Solitude, Endurance, all of these things. And drawing a bunch of cards. So I personally haven't played against the decks that were playing Up the Beanstalk because everybody was scamming me instead. So, I can't talk about the prevalence of this card. I understand why it's annoying and why it generates the card advantage. It, again, is another hold my beer scenario from Leyline Binding to Solitude. This card generates... Yeah. I want to see how long this card lasts in Standard. And I think the only reason this card isn't banned in Standard is because it's been extended for another year. And that leaves more cards to be able to deal with it. So, yeah.
Well, but the thing is, I think to really express how frustrating this card is, I have a piece of removal in my hand for it. If I can counter it on the stack, okay, that's one thing. Great. 1 for 1, they don't, can't trip off it, whatever. But if I have a piece of removal in my hand, Up the Beanstalk hits the board. They then draw a card. They spent 2 mana to draw a card. They've effectively cycled. The moment I spend removal on this, which, you just have to do, it's just correct. Because if a deck is running this, they have a way to abuse it. That's just how it works. If you don't remove this, they're going to draw 10 cards off it. Maybe that's slight hyperbole, but in some games, it's not. But if you spend removal on it, now they have cycled a card out of their hand and pulled a removal spell out of mine. This feels awful. There is no good way to counteract this aside from spell piercing it on the stack or something. That's the only clean way to answer this card. Otherwise, it's just good value no matter what. And if it sticks around, they're going to draw just an obscene amount of cards off it and just never be out of gas. So I think this card is genuinely a problem. And period. It's not even a matter of in a certain format. And with the cost reduction spells and the free spells, obviously in Modern, make it a special case. So I can understand why in that format it is especially egregious. That makes sense. But at the end of the day, the reason this card is so busted in Modern is because the Evoke Elementals exist, right? So they're still the problem. And so, I agree that it's nice to see Fury go. But I do also completely agree. We're going to just move from Rakdos scam to Orzhov scam. And it's going to continue. Guaranteed. There is no way it's not. And so, honestly, as long as those free spells exist... it reminds me of when Hogak was ruining everything, and they banned a whole bunch of dredge cards around it to try to prevent. And it's no, Hogak's the problem. Just get rid of Hogak.
Right.
And it's the Evoke Elementals in Modern. Okay. Disclaimer: I don't currently play Modern, but someday I would love to. And if it's just going to be scam, as far as I can see, I'm not buying in.
Right.
It's really that simple.
Right. And you could see the attendance numbers for RCQs during the Modern season just dropped off. People didn't want to waste their time to play against these decks. And here's me showing up with... to one RCQ, I showed up with a blue-black deck with Videlkin Shackles. And it was a blast to play. And I could beat the scam deck. And I beat the scam deck with Phyrexian Crusader in the sideboard. Because, that card has pro-red. And Fury ain't blocking it. And I'm infinitely blocking Fury. So that was fun times. And I've got some updates to that deck, I think, coming. This card just hosts Fury. I just gotta hope that opponent didn't play Grief against me.
Right.
That's
amazing.
That's the only thing you gotta do. If your opponent's gonna scam you, poison them. That's answer.
What's the biggest scam? Infect. Right. Let's go. Yeah. The original
I will
scam.
tell you, there are 2 things I'm not happy with that they didn't do with Modern.
Okay.
Aside from not getting rid of Grief.
Yeah, Grief and Solitude.
Number 1, why didn't they take the opportunity to unban Splinter Twin? And I know that this is sort of like the meme conversation that we talk about all the time with unbans, just waiting for my boy to get unbanned.
But let's talk about it, for real. Why not? Yeah.
this card is not as powerful as it was back in the day. For them to unban Preordain before this card doesn't make sense to me. You know, Splinter Twin had to kill you on turn 4 if possible, assuming your opponent had no removal or no interaction for like your Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch, that you also had to flash in on turn 3. So with the amount of free spells that exist in the format, that also can deal with these cards, right? Whether it be Subtlety, which is the blue evoke creature, whether that be Solitude, Hello, Lightning Bolt exists in this format, right? You know, Splinter Twin can be unbanned.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you're going to a tournament which a bunch of people are just like sorcery speeding, winning the game on turn 4, which seems bad in Modern.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Turn 4 sorcery speed, and it's an aura.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an aura. Like, come on. Like, I can't.
I would much rather get Splinter Twin because I forgot to keep up interaction against the Splinter Twin deck than dying to grief and fury.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
So, Wizards of the Coast, please unban Splinter Twin.
Yeah, let's just do it.
My $5 card will forever stay in my bulk box now.
Right.
Until that happens. So.
Well, and the other talking point there that is just absolutely true is in that deck, you have to run bad cards for the combo to work. You know, Deceiver Exarch and Pestermite are not game-winning cards on their own. They're just not. Whereas in, the scam decks, to be fair, I suppose, like, Not Dead After All is not going to be winning you the game if you don't have, you know, a body online. But, I don't know, the difference between a 1-mana, you know, I don't know, it feels different, I think. So, yeah, I feel like this would be perfectly fine right now. And, especially with how much interaction we have now.
Right.
Like, every color has some instant speed way to deal with this. Like,
and in a format that is non-rotating, right? It's just always going to have cards added to it.
In a world where we're still allowed to Solitude. Anyway. Yeah. It would have been interesting to see if anybody could pull this off while Fury was still in the format. But anyway. Good stuff.
Yeah, so
but yes.
that's something I hopefully would like to see them change with Modern.
Yeah, that'd be nice to see.
In the future. And hey, like I said, we have scheduled ban announcements. So they can do it whenever. My Splinter Twins are ready in the bulk box for when they would like to do that.
Yep.
They're ready to go.
And I have a whole bunch of Deceiver Exarchs that I picked up at some point that I'd be more than happy to, you know, yeah.
But another card that I think is, and it's not a sleeper anymore, and I think we've talked about this a couple weeks ago on the podcast too. Y'all, get your Tishana Tidebinders. That card from Lost Caverns of Ixalan is absolutely ridiculous. I love playing with this card in Standard. I look forward to playing with this card in Modern and in Pioneer. It's a house.
So good.
And it's a fair house because it's a 3/2. But at minimum, it counters an activated or triggered ability for 3. And if Tishana's Tidebender is able to stay on the battlefield, you are making a Planeswalker, a vanilla, do nothing with counters on it. You are turning off a creature and making it vanilla, right? So my favorite thing to do is to flash this in with a Shieldra trigger, and then it makes it a 4/5 with no death touch.
Yep.
It's great. It turns off your schooners. It will turn off your Smugglers Copters in Pioneer. So just think about this. There's a reason this card's about $20 in paper at Rare. And that's because it is the business. So stock up on your Tidebinders now. That price ain't coming down. If anything, that price will likely come up. This also counters the ability of all of those free elementals, right? Even though it won't turn them into a vanilla creature because they get pitched. But you can counter the evoke. You can counter the ability. Like, sign me up.
It's silly. This card's so good.
It's such a great card.
Yeah.
You could use it yourself to counter your evoke ability to keep your creature that you just played for free onto the battlefield.
That's also true.
So you can scam with this card.
Yep. Or in situations where if you're in Grixis, if you have Croxa or like Uro, sort of those things where it's like it enters to sacrifice it. Nope, just kidding. Although in that case you vilify it. That's not great.
Yeah. So granted, you will turn your creature into a vanilla after if you counter specifically the evoke ability.
Right.
But you still get to keep the creature.
Right. And then if the Tidebinder dies, then you get the other abilities back.
Yep.
But to be honest, I mean, yeah, the evoke elementals have keyword abilities once they're on the field. But like, I don't know. Is that really that important? You know, if I lose out on the lifelink for my Solitude for like one turn, okay, not that big a deal. But honestly, I think Stifle effects in general are highly underrated, and the fact that this one comes with a 3/2 body at instant speed is also just fantastic. You know, you can do this mid combat for all kinds of weird shenanigans. Yeah, I honestly, I completely agree. I think this card is just a house. You know, and it's a Merfolk Wizard as well. So if you're doing anything with those creature types, you know, it's like, you know, is this a good card in my deck or in my format of choice? Like, well, does your format have a Merfolk deck in it of some kind? If the answer to that is yes, then absolutely. Any kind of like flash tempo situation, this just belongs in it. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. Fun fact, the one that I just absolutely adore too is hitting the Sheoldred, because it even removes the Death Touch. That's just icing. It's like, that's just beautiful. It's great. Yeah, big fan. Also, Chimil. Spells can't be countered, but Chimil's Discover sure can be. The number of times that I've like rocked out the Chimil, being like, all right, this is great. End step. You know, the Discover trigger hits the stack, and the opponent's like Tidebinder. It's like,
Now Chimil is vanilla.
Yep, Chimil's just a really pretty artifact that just sits there and does nothing. Like, awesome. Yep. So, yeah, no, this card is absolutely phenomenal. I completely agree. Yeah. It's the real deal. Awesome. So, the next topic that I wanted to touch on today, we have a new format that's going to be coming to Arena. So, it was funny, because on the exact same day that they announced the bans, they launched an announcement saying, oh, by the way, this new format's coming. I also love how they were like, oh, and it's coming on the same day as Khans of Tarkir is coming to Arena, which is another thing that I think a lot of people forgot is happening. So this upcoming Tuesday, folks, it's going to be a very busy day on Arena, so I'm looking forward to that. I also love being a morning streamer, by the way, because all morning I'm going to be answering the question, hey, when does Timeless drop? Oh, hey, by the way, when does Timeless drop? Which I don't mind. Keep the questions coming.
As if we already don't get the questions, right? What do you think of Timeless? Okay, I'll say the same thing 5 times.
I will say it again. You got it. Yeah. It was funny, too, because I even made a YouTube video specifically because I knew I was going to get that question, and the next day I still got that question like a dozen times. It's like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind. Again, engagement's great. We can talk about it. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, we have thoughts. And we're going to talk about them here as well. So if you're curious, what are our thoughts on Timeless? Well, let's get into it. So yeah, if you're not familiar with Timeless, what that is going to be a brand new format on Arena where every card that is on the Arena client will be legal. That's right. We're talking 0 bans. It is all on the table. There is a restricted list, however, and there are only 3 cards on it. That's it. One is Channel, because holy wow, that thing's insane. I'm still shocked they reprinted it in the Mystical Archives, but whatever. So we have Channel. We also have Demonic Tutor and Tybalt's Trickery. And that's it. And those are on the restricted list, meaning that your deck can still have 1 of each of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy cow.
I think formats with a restricted list are great. Mm-hmm. I like the concept behind the format, right? I'm prepared to get Blood Mooned to death. Like, that's just an accepted fact. I think it's fine that there's a format that folks can play on Arena as a nod to playing no ban list historic, right? Because that seemed widely popular, but just to see who could do the most broken stuff. Like, really, that's the reason it was popular. The issue that I have with the format is not the typical response, which is there's Arena alchemy cards exclusive to this allowed in this format. I don't like that. That's been the widely viewed and displayed response across socials, right? And by the way, alchemy cards, they're not going anywhere. right?
Yep.
So like I treat that as a moot point all the time because Magic the Gathering isn't getting rid of the alchemy cards on Arena. Like it's there to stay. It was their first sort of digital format, right? With digital only cards that allows them to branch out. If you don't like playing with the alchemy cards, that's fine. Don't play with them. There are other formats that are there for you, right? What I dislike about the introduction of a new format onto Arena is we are still in construction of one. And they need to finish Explorer to the Pioneer transition before introducing another format. If we don't have cards to be able to replicate what I'm doing on this client in paper or vice versa, I don't understand the implementation of something new. Because those resources could be spent on completing the format that is in construction, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
The other larger issue I take with it is now you are adding an additional format that is able to be played on the ranked constructed ladder. And by that, what I mean by that is that only the top 250 people on the constructed ladder qualify for the pro play system, right? So you're not adding additional slots there. You are just adding a different ladder for people to be able to qualify for that. So understand this. We have Standard, we have Alchemy, we have Explorer, we have Historic, and now Timeless. So 5 different formats now to compete for the top 250. Meanwhile, a separate ladder is there for Limited. One. Top 250 Limited enabled the pro play tier, right?
Right.
Why at this point would anybody play anything other than Limited if that's your goal?
If that's the goal, sure. Yeah.
And that's not a knock on any of those other formats. I think a change that should be made now that you're introducing a 5th is that you take the top 100 from each separate constructed ranked and say you qualify. I think that would be a fantastic fix. But me trying to play for number 1 on the constructed tier shouldn't have to do that with 4 other formats, like competing against them. And what's been seemed to be commonplace, at least on Arena, is folks are leveling up quickly on the ladder in other formats that aren't Standard. In other words, people try to quickly climb via Historic or Alchemy.
Yep.
They get to that top Mythic. They retain that spot in playing whatever format they want, and that's where they stay, and they queue. And that's fine. But there either needs to be more lists, more slots, or a separation of that constructed tier ladder at this point.
Yeah. No, and it's funny you mentioned that because, that's a phenomenal point, and I definitely appreciate that. Because the reality is, I think a lot of the really busted cards in Magic's history that are going to be primo players in Timeless aren't the alchemy cards anyway. I'm sure some of the alchemy cards will see some play, and maybe they're annoying. All right, fine. But they're there. The one thing that I do like on that front is that the cards that have been digitally rebalanced for Alchemy and Historic are going to be true to paper and Timeless. So that's nice. But yeah, the ladder call out is brilliant because I've heard of that. I've heard of a lot of folks leveling up specifically in Alchemy because all new players are funneled into Alchemy. And so if you're going full sweat mode where the goal is to just get as high as possible, regardless of the experience of getting there, apparently taking an incredibly powerful, incredibly fast deck into Alchemy is a great way to do it. Because apparently that ladder is just a little softer than some of the other ones, and you can just farm all the way up to get into Mythic on it. And so folks like me who just enjoy playing Standard and play the ladder to play good Standard games, and I end where I end, yeah, the chances of me getting, half the time even getting out of Diamond is not likely because I'm playing janky brews. But, when I do get to Mythic, I never see higher than 98 these days. Never. It's just not going to happen.
It's almost like you have to try to get into the numbers on the Standard ladder early, or you can't get into them.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And so you have to play a lot at the start. And that's fine and all. I'm all down for the grind for the ladder. The issue I take though is that we're battling on 5 different ladders now,
and they all count the same.
To try to reach the same goal, whereas I can battle on one ladder. and reach that same goal.
Yep.
So they either got to separate it or they got to add more spots. Instead of the top 250, invite the top 500. You gotta increase that.
Yeah, that would probably fix it. Just open it up to more people.
Yep.
I don't know logistically how that would change things down the line, but that would help kind of alleviate some of the pain there. Because I feel like gaming the ladder is its own game, and it almost feels like playing the arena ladder doesn't even feel like playing Magic. It's just kind of its own thing, and I mean, I don't know. I guess that's fine, like to a point. I mean, obviously there are going to be some kind of loopholes. There are going to be some best practices, some tricks that can give you an edge. It's a game. We're gamers. I get that.
Yep.
But yeah, exactly what you're saying. It is weird that Alchemy and Timeless share the same ladder. Like that's going to be odd. Yeah.
But also begs the question, since Khans of Tarkir, right, is coming to Arena on the 12th, why are the fetch lands banned in Historic? Because, like, Historic is already kind of like a bonkers format that has the best mana you can have on Arena.
Yep.
And I don't know that the fetch lands means there's a net benefit outside of just increasing the amount of shock and tri lands that you would play in that format versus like your alchemy lands that are also good, that provide good fixing plus some other things sometimes. Maybe that's just because I don't play Historic enough, but the concern from fetch lands in the past, like why they're banned in Pioneer, is because they don't want another format where people in Paper were shuffling Magic cards together on a 50-minute round timer at an event, which is happening with Modern, but Modern is more fast-paced. That doesn't matter on Arena. I just got to click, click, and bam, my land's on the battlefield. So, I don't understand that part.
Yeah, I don't either. And honestly, though, now with Timeless on the client, from my perspective, I kind of wonder, not even just, okay, why are the fetch lands banned in Historic, but frankly, why is Historic? Like, now that we have Timeless, I feel like Historic was the non-rotating format where you could do the most busted things with your collection. Well, Timeless is easily going to become that day one, no question. And so now all of a sudden, the folks who've been playing Historic primarily now, how many of those folks are going to move over to Timeless and how many are going to be left? I know the idea of Historic is that it is a curated experience. And so I guess, is that curated experience going to keep people engaged? Because I feel like a lot of the folks who were in Historic previously moved over to Explorer when that showed up. If they were trying to emulate Pioneer, trying to get something closer to Pioneer. So we have that now. And now if you just want to like... and for the record, I love the idea that Timeless exists just to give someone an opportunity. Give folks an opportunity to just take the blinders off, go crazy. Like, this is no gloves, do the most busted nonsense you can. I think I don't know, I love the idea that there's a place in Magic where you can do that. Like, I love that Legacy and Vintage exist. I love that CEDH has kind of become its own thing. You know, where, like, there's this expectation. Everything's on the table. We're gonna get nasty. Let's go. Yep. I love that that exists. I'm probably not going to play a ton of it myself, if I'm completely honest. I'm going to dabble, because sure, let's check it out. Why not? Yeah. But I'm probably not going to spend a ton of time in it, because that's not necessarily the type of Magic I like to play. But for some folks, that's like the only way to play, and they absolutely love it. Great! Now Arena can cater to that playstyle. That's rad. Yeah. No, I'm glad that exists on that front. But yeah, no, those are some great points. The competitive nature. It'll be interesting to see if Timeless becomes like a turn 2 combo farm, which I'm fully expecting it to be. It'll be interesting to see if people are able to, you know, level up quickly and get to those high level mythic numbers. You know, maybe Timeless becomes the format of choice for that. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, then there's the question of like, okay, does this ladder system still make sense?
Right. And if that's the case, can we please give the historic brawl players their own ranked queue?
Yes. Like, why not?
How do we get a new format with a ranked queue and not the nod to the enormous amount of people who do just grind historic brawl for fun? Like, give them a ranked queue, because there's already a hell queue that exists in historic brawl, and I'm still tired of playing against Golos.
Right.
and I'm tired of playing against other prismatic bridge decks, just because I want to jam my prismatic bridge with
Exactly.
planeswalkers. I mean, hello, but yeah, come on,
Yeah. I'm
and
just
make it a separate ranked queue,
right.
please.
It's funny actually. I have a 5-color deck that's themed around pigs, and I have Omnath as the commander. Even though Asika would be a significantly better commander for that deck, because I know if I take that into the queue, I'm gonna get matched against just the most vile stuff that people are doing out there. And yeah, it's gonna be Golos and Kinnan as far as the eye can see. It's like, no, thank you, I'm not interested. Yeah. So anyway. Yes, I get what you're saying. It's yeah, so they already have the Hell queue. They already acknowledge there are people who play competitively. You know, there is a, you know, competitive historic brawl scene already. So yeah, why not give it a rank? Who are they hurting? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, give them a rank queue, give them the opportunity to win some packs and some card styles at the end of the season. Like, who cares? Like, give it to them. Yeah. Anyway. Cool. But yeah, so Timeless. Oh, and also there will be if you log in on December 12th, and I believe it's going to be available for a little while afterwards, you will receive a playset of Timeless Dragon, which is a Modern Horizons 2 card that they're giving out on Arena to celebrate the launch of Timeless. It's cool. It's a plane cycling dragon. That
Original plane cycling. I love it.
All right, check it out. Yeah, it's a good card. Cool dragon. Nothing but love. I don't know that I'm going to put it in any of my decks, but it's neat.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it's nice because it has Eternalize.
It sure does.
You can plane cycle it and then reanimate it.
You can reanimate it later, which is rock on. Nothing but love there. Cool. So yeah, so those are kind of the news, and then we also have a they did the first look at Karlov Manor. That was the other big thing from this past week. So they did kind of the teaser, if you will, the first look stream, where they talked about a number of cards from Murders at Karlov Manor, which is going to be coming out next year, as well as the Clue crossover, which I gotta be honest, I had no idea what to expect with the Clue crossover specifically. I genuinely thought it was going to be a Magic edition of the board game Clue, but that is not the case. If that will exist, that'll be a separate thing. There is going to be...
I sure hope so.
I know, right? I hope so too, honestly, because like that seems like a slam dunk, and they have the relationship, so why not, right?
Yep.
But they will be doing... Yeah, they're going to be a whole bunch of Clue-themed cards that are going to be like a special promo product that they're going to be doing alongside Murders of Karlov Manor. So, all right, cool. But yeah, so they've shown us a handful of cards, and I want to talk about a handful of them. I'm not going to go into all of them so far because there were a number. We haven't gotten into spoilers proper, but there was one bomb that got dropped that I'm incredibly excited about as a standard player. Flippin' Lightning Helix is going to be standard legal.
Yeah, Lightning Helix is an old love of playing this card in OG Ravnica. Imagine needing this card to answer a 3/3 Watch Wolf in Standard. Just a vanilla 3/3. Lightning Helix was the bomb diggity. And when Modern first started, I remember the excitement to play this card in that format too, alongside of Lightning Bolt. All burn players rejoiced, of course.
Well, of course.
Lightning Helix is such a good card. Just being able to stay on that tempo and gain some life after you've dealt damage is insane. This is going to hit quite a bit of what is available of aggro cards in Standard to help stay on tempo. So whether that's dealing with your Tenacious Underdog or Tishana's Tidebender or... just your cheap aggro creatures in general, the Picnic Ruiners that we keep losing to that get Monstrous Raged. Take this Lightning Helix and I gain life back. I adore that this card is going to be back in Standard. Funny enough, is there are this is going to be coupled with other burn spells that exist now, right? So Play with Fire and Lightning Strike, and let's not forget the dual list from Wilds of Eldrain that you can pay 3 mana and deal 3, and then it gives all your other burn spells lifelink, basically, right? There's got to be some burn / Boros aggro deck outside of the Convoke deck that this card will clearly be highlighted in. I
love that. I mean, I think that's absolutely going to happen. And on top of that, like, the current mono red deck is going to cry going up against this, because like you're going to remove my biggest threat, my Godric, in a lot of situations, like my Godric or my Monastery Swiftspear that has a monster roll on it. You're going to blow that up and gain 3 life. Like, oh, dang it.
Right.
Like, that's such a
Puts
big
you
swing.
so far back ahead. Yeah.
Yep. And exactly, if the True Heart Duelist is on the field as well, then all of a sudden, you gain 6 life when you hit something with this.
It's true.
Holy cow, man. And so, yeah, I completely agree that there's going to be some kind of Boros burn package. I think this is strong enough to encourage that style of deck. It'll be very interesting to see what other cards go around it. But yeah, we do have Play with Fire and Lightning Strike, as well as this. So that right there is 12 cards in your deck, all of which do good damage on rate and can go face. Like, that's awesome.
We've Stoke the Flames in
Oh,
Standard. Yep. We have Monastery Mentor.
Monastery Mentor. Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay.
Bring it. Like
this all checks out. I love it.
We got Narset from Aftermath.
Oh. Yep. Yeah, we got Narset from Aftermath. If we're going that route, you might find the Third Path Iconoclast might be more efficient than the Monastery Mentor. I don't know. You can tinker with it. But yeah, some kind of Jeskai Spellslinger thing all of a sudden is looking really nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm here for it. The other thing I wonder is if it would be possible. We still have Lunarch Veteran and Voice of the Blessed. Would it be possible to do a Boros burn life gain thing? Maybe that's a little too much Magical Christmas Land, but I don't know. I want to believe that there might be something there.
Certainly brew some jank there. That's
yeah,
for sure.
There might be something. I don't know. We'll tinker, but yeah. And then the Duelist again, giving all your burn spells lifelink. That kind of would play into that as well. So. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of options, and that's really, this card is one of those where if you're in these colors, there's almost no reason not to run it. It's phenomenal removal. It's a great tempo play, and it's only 2 mana. What's not to love? And like, honestly, I have a lot of like weird, goofy Mardu like combo decks or mid-range decks. This is slotting into all of them immediately because it's just so good. And when the dream happens and you're going up against a Golgari player who has a Glissa down, and you get to hit it with this, like,
whoops.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. What's not to love? So yeah, no, this card's absolutely rad. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan. Yeah. So it's not all reprints, obviously. It's a brand new standard set, so they're bringing in a lot of new stuff. And they led the first look stream by showing off a lot of the legendary creatures. So we wanted to touch on some of those. And the first one that I want to talk about is Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. So it's a big Rakdos demon. Yep. I'm a fan. He's a 6/6 flying trample legendary demon for 4 black-red. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. It's like Super Braids.
Yeah, it's glorious too. I don't know how this would fit into the current standard format. Probably played in some Atali deck, to be honest, because to hit that for free off of Atali seems insane to generate card advantage at the end step. The thing is, though, now because of Ixalan, there's a bunch of like map tokens all over the place, and just putting different token permanents into play that easily you can sack these things to Rakdos' ability.
It says non-token permanents.
Oh, it says non-token?
I know
it's broken. Excuse me. Ignore my last comment.
It's nasty. Exactly. Non-land, non-token. Like, you're gonna be hitting value with this every time, baby. It's beautiful.
Or just drawing 2 cards every time. Yeah, it's okay. Never mind. Broken card.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, exactly. Right. That non-token, that word is carrying a lot of weight because you're absolutely right. Yeah. If you could just dump a treasure at a map, like, yeah, whatever. But the fact that he doesn't let that happen. I mean, yeah, there are going to be times where you have this, where your opponent has a Spirited Companion, and a Leyline Binding that they used to hit a token earlier, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, that will happen, but that's not going to be the norm. And you have a 6/6 Frampler ready to go as well. Yep. So, I don't know. I'm definitely going to be brewing with this guy when he hits. And the flavor text, too. And finally, a performance worthy of my applause.
Yeah, and so I know you've been playing, like, the Mardu slot machine deck. And there is currently in Standard floating around a red-black ramp deck that plays, like, Iron Crag and ramps up to, like, Chandra, Breach the Multiverse, Atali. Yep. I mean, to me, this card fits right in that deck, whether you're 100%. Playing like a copy or 2. yeah, just the draw card advantage is great.
And in those decks, I mean, there's so many of the big time threats that those decks are trying to generate. So many of them are legendary. You know, like you have your Atali, you have Chandra, you have, you know, I'm trying to think of other good examples. There are tons of different things you can hit. And so because they're all legendaries, you don't necessarily want to have just a couple of 4-ofs, because if you hit them in multiples,
right.
With the exception of Atali, let's be real, that one is, you know, I'm never sad to spin an Atali into an Atali. But if you know, there's so many legendaries that having a couple of just 1-ofs, you know, having like one Rakdos Patron of Chaos, one Kroxa Kunaros, you know, like just as that, like, yeah, I might be spinning and this might pop out, and if it does, I'm not mad. And if it doesn't, I'm not mad. We're going to be fine. You know, I think that those kinds of decks can use these just kind of cheeky 1-ofs. You know, and if it just fairly, you hit turn 6 or turn 5 if you're ramping, and just play it out, your opponent has to spend removal on this. And if you're in those colors, you probably have a Breach of Multiverse or a Cruelty of Gix or something that you can just use to bring it right back. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm into it. I think this is just... big stupid demons are one of my favorite things. I'm a big fan. And, you know, I would love to see a reprint of Villas, Broker of Blood, but because we don't have that, I'm going to appreciate that we do have
right.
So, yeah. Good stuff. So next up, another card that I want to talk about is Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth, which I don't know if they could make a name that is more awkward to say than Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth, but there we are. Yeah, I have a feeling this guy's going to get a nickname very quickly.
For sure. I'm just going to call it the Sleuth.
The Sleuth, yep.
Yeah, and so this is featuring their new like specific artwork for these cards in this set. I don't know what their official name is, so forgive me.
I don't know what what's called either. So yeah, for those listening on the audio, on the video feed, we're showing off the showcase art that looks almost like a dossier, like a file folder with some information about the character. It might be the dossier style. That's what I've been calling it. I don't know if that's the official name or not, but it's the showcase for this particular set. So we're going to discuss that here too. Yeah.
And so, you know, first of all, this has a relevant creature type. This is a human.
Yes.
Okay.
Human detective.
Yep. 1, a white, and a blue. It is a 3/3 vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield, you investigate. So that means you make a clue token. More clue tokens come into standard. It's great. And then the other ability is you could pay X, white, blue, tap, and sacrifice a clue to draw X cards and gain X life. So it's a Sphinx's Revelation on a creature anytime you want, as long as you got a clue to sacrifice. And you could do it at instant speed. It doesn't say sorcery only, which makes it pretty nice. And it has vigilance, so it's attacking, it ain't tapping, and you're drawing cards and netting life afterwards. 10 out of 10 card, in my opinion. I want to see more cards like this in Standard. It also relevantly does not die to like cut down, which is great for a 3-drop. You know, the relevant creature type in human means that you can play this in a deck with like Cavernous Souls to make sure it doesn't get countered. We've got the Secluded Courtyard from Neon Dynasty. You can cast it off of Plaza of Heroes, which is also relevant. 10 out of 10 mythic.
Yeah, that was a really cool design. It's straightforward. It's just good value all around. And it obviously is going to work better if you have multiple clues. But even then, you know, he brings one. So there's going to be one clue on the table. You have one Sphinx's Rev in the chamber at any point if you have mana open.
Yep.
So it's kind of a weird design because Sphinx's Rev is a spell where it's great in controlling decks that may, you know, generally, or more traditionally, I should say, have fewer creatures in them. And so the fact that it's on a body is maybe a little awkward, although, actually, now that I think about it, the more I think about it, the more I like it. Because right now, the aggro decks that we're seeing, you know, success in Standard with are those, you know, the human soldiers decks, you know, that are primarily white with blue for counter magic. Well, those decks want to keep up, and half the time those decks are running a whole bunch of flash creatures anyway, just so they can hold up counters to prevent the sunfalls and whatnot. And so this gives you another mana sink, and because of the vigilance, he can be joining the combat, you know, reasonably, assuming that it's not going to put him in danger, and then you can still draw the cards and gain the life on your opponent's end step if they didn't force a counterspell out of you. So, yeah, honestly, the current soldier deck seems like kind of a no-brainer spot for this guy.
Right.
And he just fits. It just presents a threat your opponent has to answer. Like a 3/3 vigilance, that is real. And, plus other value. And even then, if you play it out and he gets killed immediately, you still have the clue token. So you can still draw a card, or the next Alquist you drop, assuming you're running multiples, has more to work with.
Yeah, and at the same time, White also has a Copper Coat Vanguard from Aftermath.
Yep.
So if you're able to follow this guy up after a Vanguard, it comes into play also then with Ward 1, making it more difficult to get rid of.
Heck yes.
So yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah. No, I think, it's actually a really solid card. It's funny, so many times I see, the Azorius human, card. And I think there was one in, I want to say March of the Machine, whose names escapes me right now. And then there was, one of the, I think, Raph from Dominaria United. And it was just kind of forgettable. They're fine, I guess, if you're all in on this particular strategy, but they're very easily kind of, glossed over, at least in my experience, just because that's not my usual play style. But this guy, I think, is checking all the right boxes. This one looks really good. Yeah. I dig it. All right, so the next one that I want to talk about, and we're also going to mention that there are going to be serialized cards in this set. So that's going to be a thing. Hooray for yet more serialized cards. I love that one serialized card I have just continuing to devalue because it's not a special thing anymore, but whatever. I know that for collectors and for, commander players and whatnot, having a serialized version of your card is very special and is cool. So at the end of the day, more cards getting this treatment is not a problem. In any event, the one that I want to talk about that we know for sure is going to get one of these serialized cards is Aurelia, the Law Above. So Aurelia's back. Boros, Angel Lady, who's going to mess you up. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
You're either... Aurelia is one of those things where it's like, this is Boros, I'm a hasty angel, and I'm going to be attacking. You're either on board or you're not. And I don't know about you, but I'm on board. I'm cool with this. So this particular Aurelia is a 4/4 flying vigilance haste for 3 red-white. Whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. Note, it doesn't say you, it's any player.
Any player.
So in Commander, you just, draw 2 extra cards each turn cycle, basically, like in many pods. Anyway, and then whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia, the Law Above, deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. Lightning Helix on a trigger. Let's go.
Yeah. If this isn't like a sweet Boros tokens commander, I don't know what else is.
100%.
Constant card advantage and fast damage. Mm-hmm. I actually think this is standard playable too. I mean, Flying Vigilance Haste for 5 mana is relevant. Mm-hmm. Even though you got to worry about getting blocked by Bonehorde Drakasar. But, you probably have other creatures on the battlefield. You're probably at least netting the draw card most of the time. And if your opponent's attacking you back on the crackback, you are also netting more cards.
Right.
So, Aurelia seems great here. Mm-hmm. I also really, really enjoy the Ravnica showcase frame on all of these cards. Mm-hmm. It's by far one of my favorite showcase versions out of all of them that exist. Yeah. From Aurelia to there is a Rakdos Patron of Chaos version.
Yep.
There the Niv Mizzets in the past.
Yes.
It's just wonderful artwork. But also you're telling me I can get a serialized Aurelia? I mean, any OG like Aurelia the War Leader stands in the house because you probably want your hands on one of these. I also am the owner of a serialized card. I have Dina from this is Multiverse Legends.
Nice.
Got number 279 out of 500.
Oh, there
and
you go.
even though I've not opened any, well, I did open a Wormcoil engine. We sold that. That's another story.
Well, yeah, that's.
But I am a fan of serialized cards just because it is something special or something for you to chase. Wanting to get your favorite card in a, I only have so many of these that exist, is sort of feels good. and it could turn your booster pack that you buy, granted, $20 to $25 booster pack you buy, into hey, maybe I've got a card that's worth a couple $100 here. Like,
Yeah.
that's a feel good moment.
Absolutely.
So I'm down for that. But they're also doing serialized cards back to back, right? Because Ravnica Remastered will have serialized cards, certain cards, and the Shocklands are all serialized. And then will be followed up by Karlov Manor, which also has serialized cards, where they've kind of taken a break like the last two sets, right? Wilds of Eldraine had the confetti foil cards that were kind of like serialized cards, but there's more of them in existence.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
they were
very
definitely
expensive.
special. Yeah.
The Jurassic Park set has the emblem Jurassic Park cards,
Yep.
which are rarer than serialized cards. I'm not sure, but they are very hard to pull.
Yeah, I don't know
And-
the exact number on those, but I know those are incredibly rare and super valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of glad to see them back to back. I wish if they're going to do this that they just do serialized cards every set and not skip a couple sets. For many reasons.
Yeah.
But I'm digging this Aurelia, that's for sure.
Absolutely. No, I dig this. I honestly think Aurelia the Law Above might fit in. It's funny because it's easy to assume, oh, I want to be attacking with a lot of things, right? And so like, oh, I must be in some kind of go wide aggro deck. Well, in a lot of aggro decks, you don't necessarily want to be playing 5-drops. But the thing that I immediately think of with this, though, is what about following up a White Sun's Twilight with this? That feels pretty
Just
good
White
to me.
Sun's Twilight on 6.
Yeah, you White Sun's Twilight, where X equals 5, wipe the entire board, you have 5 mites. On your following turn,
Oh, right.
you rock this,
Yeah.
swing with her and all the mites into a probably empty, still empty board, or minimal on your opponent's side. And then you get both triggers,
Easy
that seems
12
good to me.
damage, game 3 life draw card.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm liking that. Well, and right
Yeah,
now, like with Mirex, with Wedding Announcement, with Virtue of Loyalty, people are just rocking out, and Skitter, people are just rocking out tokens and going like wide, just kind of almost accidentally. So a mid-range deck with that, if you're in these colors, has Aurelia as like a 1 or 2 of, because that one game, you might be able to just rock it out, and that's all you need. The fact that she's a 5-drop that trades with things like Decadent Dragon is a little bit of a bummer, but I think there'll be plenty of situations where she is what you need. And even if she gets blocked, if you can get that damage trigger, that 3 damage and 3 life gain might be the difference. So, yeah. No, this card's great. And yeah, again, I've been kind of completely agree. The showcase for Ravnica is amazing. So the showcase that we're discussing, we saw it a lot in March of the Machine. I think March of the Machine might have been when we first saw it with some of the Multiverse Legends, where we had like Niv Mizzet, Fibblethip, and Borber Rigmos, and a number of other ones. And it's that style where there are just spires and buildings just around the edge of the frame.
Yep.
And the art style complements it really nicely. And it's kind of fun because there are so many frames that have extra stuff going on, and the extra stuff kind of takes away from the art, and it's not really... And it doesn't serve the overall experience. In this case, I think it does serve the overall experience, and it blends in really nicely with the art while creating the scene. And for Ravnica, that's so important. It's one of the most, I don't know about most iconic, that maybe is, well, I think that's fair to say. It's one of the most iconic Magic planes at this point. It's absolutely, that setting is so meaningful to so many players because we've been there so many times and had so many amazing events happen there. That really showcasing that plane, with the buildings that it's known for in the frame, I think it's just cool.
Yeah, and I'm interested for the lore fans out there. I am interested to hear about lore that talks about Ravnica having been like rebuilt after War of the Spark, because Ravnica got decimated in War of the Spark. Nicol Bolas built this whole big thing called a citadel. Kind of like right there, and blew a bunch of buildings up, and Liliana caught herself on fire because she's breaking this contract with Bolas and all of this stuff. Dak Faden got the axe, R.I.P.
Justice for Dak. Anyway,
and so I'm excited to learn about what's changed here, because granted, we're not here to visit the whole plane of Ravnica. It's just supposed to be what's happening at Karlov Manor. So less of an emphasis on the plane. but it's going to be interesting to learn what's happening here. And first of all, I didn't expect Aurelia to be here, so just to see it,
Right?
just to see Aurelia in the storyline is going to be interesting. But how do you
Yeah.
not bring back a favorite like Aurelia?
Oh,
I
yeah.
better hear what Niv Mizzet is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, Dugart Reborn. Let's see where what are you up to now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's actually going to be really interesting because with March of the Machine, we saw a little bit of the Phyrexian invasion on Ravnica, but I don't feel like we've really. And to be fair, there have been some stories I've missed, so maybe I've missed something. But I don't feel like we've really explored the aftermath of War of the Spark, really. And
Right.
I mean, I feel so bad for Ravnica because they were just finally like rebuilding and trying to get back to normal. And the Phyrexians were all like, "Hey, knock it off!" And it's like,
Right.
ah, but yeah, but you're right, and that was War of the Spark was interesting. There is actually one card from Guilds of Ravnica that got a reprint in War of the Spark that I think shows the story in a back-to-back way, and you're not gonna be able to guess it. I guarantee it. Gateway Plaza. I don't know if you remember this card. It's one of the gates.
Oh yeah, okay.
So in Guilds of Ravnica, Gateway Plaza it's the kind of common land that can help fix your mana. If you're in the Gates deck, it does a thing. It's
Yep.
fine. Like it's a utility limited land that probably doesn't see much play in Constructed. All right, great. But well, in War of the Spark, they needed utility lands for the limited environment, and so they reprinted Gateway Plaza. And as you can see here, it's showing it getting completely blown up. It's the exact
Right.
same location, getting absolutely destroyed. And I thought that was an interesting way for them to show the events of the story in
Sure.
a way that you can tell on cardboard. That was kind of cool. And so the little things like that were very common in War of the Spark that I just appreciated. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see going back to Ravnica after the dust settles on two massive massive kind of cataclysmic events. What is it like out there right now? And I find it funny that, okay, so there was a murder. Is that really the top of everybody's mind? I mean, after thousands of people have theoretically been killed through these massive wars, like, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to find out.
It'll
why
be
is this
also
so
interesting to see, because now we move to sort of doing this like one planeswalker per set, but planeswalkers who have lost their spark are legendary creatures now.
Right.
And so I believe we saw a piece of artwork that did show Kaya
I believe that's
on
correct.
the plane,
Yeah.
but you don't know if Kaya is a planeswalker or now just a legendary creature or not.
Yeah, I think I heard some grumblings that she still has her spark, but I'm not sure of that.
Yeah.
It's certainly not about to
Or,
confirm.
you know, where's Ral's Eric?
Don't know.
Did
Yeah.
Ral lose the spark? Ral's powerful and like kind of evil, but not 100% evil. Yeah, who knows? Dovenbon is still on the run, right? Like, hello.
Is he or did he die? I
don't remember. But
I don't know. When I saw the when I saw War of the Spark Forsaken get like a 2 out of 10 off every site that reviews books, I was like, I think I'll pass. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened. With that.
Kaya, I believe in the lore, is supposed to be hunting down Dovenbon post War of the Spark. And I feel like we went into the Phyrexian invasion and have no idea what happened there. Instead, all of a sudden, Kaya was trying to murder Vorinclex on Kaldheim.
Yeah, she was kicking that Kaldheim.
So,
yeah.
you know, imagine how many years ago has War of the Spark been?
It's what, 3 now? 4? Is it been 4
It's a long time now, right?
It has been a long time. Huh.
Jeez. Well, here we are.
Yeah. Yes, here we are. Exactly. Interesting. Yeah, now I'm curious. How long? Yeah. And I'm having to scroll shockingly far on this list of sets to find it, which, well,
War of the Spark release date,
2019. It was
2019.
So it's been 4 years. It was May of 2019. So we're looking at
Planeswalkers.
Yeah, it's been.
I love that set, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, War of the Spark was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it too. But yeah, it's been almost 4.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Or no, 4.5. Almost. Oh my god. Anyway, it's been a long time. Yeah, not quite 5 years. Under 5 years. But yeah, there's been some crazy stuff happening, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what the story implications are with Kaya. They also confirmed that Kellen is going to be in the set. We haven't seen his card yet.
Oh, Kellen's found another Omen Path.
Yep, but apparently he's just bopping around the multiverse, and he's just kind of, he's apparently just the audience stand-in everyman
Yeah.
character now, which fine, I
On the
guess.
search for Dad that he will find in Thunder Junction, probably.
If Thunder Junction isn't the culmination of his arc, I won't. I'll be very surprised.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make sense, and I can only that has to be the reason they keep bringing him around. Yeah, which rock on. Cool.
Might mean that we see eventually Kellen on top of one of the cars in the wacky races through the Omen paths.
I can't believe there's
cool
actually going to be. I in my head that is always just going to be Mario Kart. Like,
Right.
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Omen paths just are Rainbow Road, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, more to come on that as more information unfolds. But bringing it back to Karlov Manor, they have confirmed that there will be special guests in Karlov Manor as well. And they've shown one so far, which modern players are probably happy to see get a reprint, in Crashing Footfalls.
Yes, more rhinos.
Yeah. Whether you prefer to discover into it or cascade into it, here it is.
Exactly that. Now, remember also, I sort of want to use this time to remind folks that with Murders of Karlov Manor comes a new booster that is the Play Booster, and we discussed that on a previous MagicJank episode podcast, and you should check that out on the YouTube channel, by the way, or go back and listen to a previous episode there on your podcatcher app or whichever one you're using.
Absolutely. Whatever your podcast app of choice is. I'll be sure to add that link in the description because that is going to be a significant change, and this is the set that is going to bring it. So
yes. And so you will be able to get special guest cards as one of the slots on the Play Boosters, which means that they are draftable. That's why you should go listen to that episode because we talk about the effects on Limited in that episode. But I will say that I rather enjoy seeing like these special guest cards in boosters, especially when they're cards that have been expensive, and now I can open it up out of my cheaper booster now, and I say cheaper in quotation marks because they're probably going to be the same cost, if not slightly more than what a set booster was to purchase, and so the fact that, like, in Lost Caverns of Ixalan, I could open up $150 Mana Crypt out of my $4 or $5 booster pack, that's great. Keep doing that, by the way.
Oh, 100%.
Not saying reprint everything to hell, but, you know, it would be great to have increased access and accessibility to the expensive cards via a cheaper method. That's always great. It's a feel-good to open up a $100 card out of my $5 pack, right?
Absolutely.
You know, Crashing Footfalls isn't anywhere near $100, right? It's not that expensive.
No.
But it is good to put cards that are actively played in a competitive constructed format in a newer standard booster. So that way the standard players, follow me, can get access to those cards. So, you know, this is great. And it makes me wonder if they will also then just put the other series of this as special guests. I'm doubtful. I think they're just going to put like random stuff here because they didn't print other cycles of cards. So like Ixalan special guest had Lord of Atlantis, but no other Lord.
None of the Lords, yeah.
So maybe it has to do something with special stories and the arts they make for these cards. You know, like Galta I have in the back here on my video for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Galta's original card was given special guest treatment in Ixalan. So I'm excited to see what they put here, but I'm a fan of including cards like this in those slots.
I'm right there with you. And in this case, it's interesting because, you know, as you mentioned, these are going to be draftable in the way that if you get a Lord of Atlantis in your, you know, in a pack for Ixalan, it wasn't legal in the draft environment. You couldn't play it. Whereas, and you know, same with Mana Crypt, it was a box topper. You could never, you know, or I think it was one of those promos that, you know, it wasn't legal in the draft environment, which is for the best because obviously, holy cow. But like with Crashing Footfalls, if I'm understanding correctly the way that these are going to be concatenated and being in the Play Booster, like you might get this at the pre-release, in which case, okay, you're not going to be cascading into it, but you know, 2/4/4 rhinos for 1 mana and a little patience in limited, that's still very good, right? And so you're going to be happy to see it in that context. And then if you collect, like if you draft this set a fair number of times and you get your hands on 2 or 3 of these, all of a sudden, well, there's a modern deck that could use those if you're interested in possibly fleshing that out. All right, that's kind of neat. And if other cards in the special guest slot are similar in how they operate and that they are playable in other formats, then that could be a cool way to encourage players to give those other formats a try. And I like to see that as well. Exactly. And honestly, I'm of the opinion that they should just reprint everything like crazy. I would much rather... I think the serialized versions, the special showcase arts, those should be chaseable, but I love the idea of just base playable versions of the cards being inexpensive and accessible. I think that's for the best for the game.
Oh, for sure.
It means that your play booster box won't be worth much, but at the same time, you're going to be opening up a whole bunch of game pieces that you can play a game with, which I think is what Magic ought to be. I know, crazy, right? Anyway. But yeah. In any event, so yeah, that's what we had to discuss today. As you can imagine, it was jam-packed. At this point, we don't have time to get into any questions, but if you have questions for us, please jump into our Discord server, hop out in there, and we do have a podcast questions channel where you can leave any kind of feedback, any questions that you want to hear us discuss on the podcast, even just silly topics that you think we might have some fun with. Please don't hesitate to drop them in there. We love hearing from you. You can also tweet at us at MagicJank over on Twitter with the hashtag JankMail, and we will check those. We'll respond to those as well. But yeah, so Carla, before we go, you want to tell the folks where they can find you on the internet and what they can expect to find when they get there?
Oh, yeah. So I can be found primarily on Twitch. Twitch.tv/CFavretto_Jr. I play a lot of Arena, but I also have been doing some IRL Magic, so whether that's pre-releases at my LGS or streaming, which I will be doing, like the Sunday is streaming the Paper Standard Store Championship, so you can find that over there. I'll also be going to DreamHack Atlanta next week, so if you want to catch out a cool live stream from DreamHack Atlanta, you can catch that live on the Twitch channel. But you can find me on all of the other social platforms. So from Instagram to Twitter to Threads, if that's still a thing, TikTok too, all same handle. You can find that in my link tree and stuff that'll be listed below.
Heck yeah. And you can find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/hamhawks42, as well as places that, again, in the description, you can find us on all the places. And go check out everybody on the team, by the way. Everybody... on the team is just, they're all lovely people. So
yeah, again, you can go on Twitch and look up the MagicJank Twitch channel and the team, and it'll give you all of the links to everybody who's there too.
Yep. So any time of day, if you're just like, man, I wonder if any of those Jank folks are live, you can pop right over there and you can see. And there's a good chance one of us are. We have good coverage on the days, I think. So anyway. But yes. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Yeah, Carla, thank you so much, my friend. Always a pleasure. And we will be back next week to talk about more news. I'm sure there will be all kinds of new spoilers and things, as well as our impressions of Timeless and whatnot. We will have had an opportunity to play it then. So we'll see how it goes. But all right, until next time, everybody, take it easy.
See ya.
Later.